Now, news that both NAB's CEO and chair will fall on their swords shook the market last week. But this rare case has actually now highlighted a central issue when it comes to appointing the company's new leader.
The outgoing chair, Ken Henry, should not be the one appointing the company's new CEO. This is according to the former treasurer and now future fund chair, Peter Costello. Instead, he reckons Ken Henry shouldn't be sticking around to help smooth out the transition. He should be gone pretty quickly. Does he have a point for tonight's Taking Stock? We're joined by Scott Phillips, Chief Investment Officer at The Motley Fool, and Shivani Gopal, CEO at The Remarkable Woman. Thanks, guys. Scott, first to you. Does he have a point?
I think he does.
The wrong way to manage it.
Yeah, I think he does. I think if you think about the long term here, what's happened is NAB's board, effectively and ostensibly the CEO and chair, have decided they're not the right people to take this company forward. Fair enough, so let's assume that's done. They're going to appoint a new CEO who's apparently a clean skinner in theory and is going to take the bank into a new generation of leadership, except that person's going to be appointed by the guy who himself is leaving. So when the new chair turns up, the new chair is stuck with whoever the current chair appoints. And that sense of kind of the clean start is tarnished then by the very fact that the new CEO is the person, the lady or the man, chosen by the outgoing chair. So you've got this really weird scenario where the people who are supposed to be vacating the place are setting up the next leadership team for the bank. And I think in that context, it makes a perfect sense for Thorburn and Henry to go, but potentially Henry first, so there's a new chair and that person can choose their new CEO. Then you have a brand new leadership team chosen effectively together, moving into the next generation or the next stage, if you like, of NAB's future.
Shivani, what do you think about all this?
Yeah, I'm right with Scott on this. I think that if NAB needs a cultural change, just as Commissioner Hayne has advised, then they really do need to do something really different. And if you have got Henry making the decisions as the chairperson, then you're really going to get much of the same kind of thing. And what NAB needs to do is a complete repositioning to win the hearts and minds of the public again. They need to do the exact opposite of what they've done. And what you need to look at is, well, you know, outcomes and behaviours, they come from the top, right? So everything that's happened throughout NAB can be attributed to the chairperson, the board decisions, as well as the CEO. So it really does make sense to have someone else come in to make those hiring decisions. But what he could be is be part of a knowledge transfer instead. So not be the person who's part of the hiring decision-making process, but someone who comes in at a certain part of the interview and says, let me educate you on what happened, what's been done, and some of the woes that we've had. So the knowledge transfer can be, you know, a warm handover, if you like, but certainly he shouldn't be the one making that hiring call.
Well, there is some speculation at the moment, and it is just speculation, that interim CEO Philip Chronican will end up being the chair. And if that's the case, what do you think? Does it work then if that happens?
Look, I'm going to take a slight tangent a little bit, because remember, Henry and Thorburn aren't gone for being bad guys. They're gone for being obstinate during the Royal Commission. Yeah. And if you know, to the extent that these guys have had to walk the plank, it's because it's been bad PR. It's not bad management. In fact, if you're going to say, well, they're going because their bank has been badly run, then guess what? Off go the CBA guys, off go the Westpac guys, off go the ANZ guys. If that's the basis for the decision, then the entire executive ranks of all four big banks and probably Macquarie, AMP, IOOF, choose your bank, should go as a result. The reality is these guys are going because they lost the PR war by sending the Royal Commission and saying, nope, 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 nope.
They're
and then Hayne came out.
Testimony,
right, and so to some degree, this is a kind of a victory of spin over substance. And I think that's why I'm a little bit mindful that, you know, did they need to go? Well, probably, but if they do, they should be going for the right reasons, which is the substance. And if that's true, so should the other bank CEOs and chairs. So I want to be a little bit careful about how deserving they are of being given the boot, given the other guys are hanging around.
I feel like I agree. I mean, if anyone read Kevin Rudd's piece in Fairfax 9, today was in the SMH where I read it, and he went through the achievements of Ken Henry. His stunning achievement through the global financial crisis as an advisor to the government, or as Treasury Secretary, basically saving the financial sector from ruin. I mean, in the end, no deposit holders lost money. We had no banks go under. And he was the guy behind the scenes pretty much directing the government. The government took all of his advice. And, you know, yet here we are crucifying the guy like he's the worst businessman we've ever had in the country. And I think, you know, there was an argument from Kevin Rudd where we're a bit quick to forget the good that people can do as well, when we're so keen to crucify them for, as you said, one pretty, I mean, it was an awful appearance before the Royal Commission, but maybe style over substance.
They're either badly advised or they didn't listen to that advice. Either way, they're going because they didn't do the dog and pony show. If they'd have had their time again, they both would have thought exactly what they currently think, by the way, potentially. I'll put words in their mouths. Walk up to the Royal Commission and say, I'm terribly sorry, Commissioner. Yes, we're horrible people, did terrible things. We're going to change. We were all in the wrong. Do the dog and pony show properly. Those two guys have still got their jobs today. Not because anything they didn't do during the lead up to the Commission, but for that one day or couple of days, whatever it was, of evidence, that has completely changed the trajectory of their careers.
It's a sobering thought. Shivani, do you think that that they still have a lot of value in the corporate society?
Oh, certainly. I mean, they have a lot to offer. I mean, of course, he was, special advisor to the Gillard government, as well as, taking us through the GFC, and has been part of, national policy for, almost 25 years. He's got a lot to offer. But, one of the things that, pointing to your point, Scott, a lot of the bank heads spent hours and hours locked away with executive coaches getting prepped on how to best respond to the Royal Commission answers, and we do know that that Henry didn't do that. He decided not to. So I think what really needs to happen here is a little bit of time out, some respite, and a little bit of soul searching, and then get back into the game. But certainly, this is one of those things where you have so much intelligence, you have so much capability, that a little bit of I know better and a little bit of arrogance comes on top. He's certainly incredibly capable. A little bit of time out and then back in the game. I think he does have a lot to offer.
You can't be tone deaf as a leader.
Yeah.
And that goes from any level, right? And I think probably that's one of their biggest crimes in all this.
Totally. Yes.
It's just, especially in the last week of Andrew Thorburn, I think that was pretty evident. Yeah.
A bit of contrition goes a long way.
Yep.
Yeah, maybe not the last we've seen of them anyway. Now, socially accepted facts often start as incredibly successful marketing campaigns, it turns out. So, do we need to walk 10,000 steps per day?
Yes, we do. 10,000.
Well, but that's so they say, right? Yeah. Well, maybe not. So some trace that particular one back to the 1964 Tokyo Olympics and a campaign to introduce and sell step counters. Now, elsewhere, why does Santa Claus wear red and white? Well, because Coca-Cola said so in a marketing campaign. Now, the list goes on and on here. So I suppose, are these entrenched truisms that they become? Do you reckon that's a negative? Shivani, what do you think?
Look, in this example of the 10,000 steps, of course, we know that came from, the 1964 Tokyo Olympics. And it really became a great thing, because if you're going to walk 10,000 steps, you can see, Brooke's a real advocate for it. You're going to be as fit as much as Brooke is. So how is that a bad thing, Coach?
I don't know. We hit the treadmills earlier today.
You guys on the treadmills on social media, all over the treadmills.
Exactly. But I'll tell you where it was a phenomenal thing. Why we started brushing our teeth was because of an ad from Pepsodent and the way that it took off, because previously we didn't brush our teeth regularly as a human race, and the ad form was, if you brush your teeth with Pepsodent every day, you're going to get rid of that slimy film over your mouth. And I can just sort of kind of see you all sort of running your tongue along your mouth now. Yeah. And our behaviours changed to such an extent that we now brush our teeth, hopefully at least once a day, but most of us twice a day. And so thank God for that. Right? And what else? Diamonds are a girl's best friend. You wash your face, put on night cream. It all works.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. The brushing your teeth one is certainly very good. The diamonds one, also good. Scott, what do you think?
I'm bound to agree that 10,000 steps must be true, because I've spent a couple $100 on this wrist device, which is a complete fiction, and I've wasted my money, and I won't admit that to myself or anybody else. So it must be true regardless of the evidence. It's one of those things. Look, I think, to Shivani's point, the good thing about some of these social norms, when they work well, is they do actually lead to some degree of social change, right? And that's the positive. That if we're cleaning our teeth, if we're brushing our hair, walking 10,000 steps, are we fitter with them than without?
Apparently that's thanks to the egg industry.
That's right. Yeah, best meal of the day. Yep, eggs and cereal industries. I blame big Cocoa Pops. That's the killer problem here. and big fitness band, whatever it is. Apple Watch, Fitbit, they all owe their futures to 10,000 steps. So I'm bound to say we have to buy into it, regardless of any lies or untruths.
Next question. Is your ex a snake of a person? Would you like to publicly drive home that very point? Well, the Australian Zoo is holding a competition to name a venomous snake after your ex. Only costs $1, and they want all the details as to why your ex is the worst. It all goes to kind of a charitable cause, yes, etc. But it's certainly got our attention. And if you actually Google this story, it has gone global, this Australian Zoo. So, marketing genius, guys?
Totally marketing genius. I mean, we're all talking about it. It's all over my social media feeds. Every time I do, I think of a new person to tag, because I find it so hilarious.
Not a new ex, though, Shivani, just to be clear. You're not tagging exes here, are we?
No, and look, I hate to rain on people's parade and on this snake's parade particularly, but I do have to take the high horse on this one, because even though I find it funny, I tag people, I think it's a great idea, I actually think it's really poor form when people diss their exes in public. I just think, look, Provided it wasn't an unsafe relationship, it was just an unsuccessful relationship. all that. Did I really just say that? Yes, I did.
Apparently.
Can't go back.
Good thing is this won't be recorded live later, so we won't
Not
be on
at
the
all.
website later, will it, guys?
And it won't be on the podcast.
There we go. It should be fine.
Not at all. But, if you're dissing your ex, you're really just, insulting your own choices. So I think that the best way to think about your ex is, it was a time in my past, and I've moved on since then. I'm now a much wiser person, and I won't make those silly decisions again. And move on. Be the better person for it, and don't diss them, because in a way you're just insulting
But
yourself.
having said that, this snake would be perfect if it was called.
That's right. Do you know what? Shivani's taking my entire response now. I now feel like she's taking the moral high ground. I can't answer anything other than, okay, Shivani, you're right. What I will say is, what I like about this from a marketing perspective is, it's the anti-Valentine, right? So
Exactly
we're
what I was- yeah, that's what I was
Hallmark
talking
week this week and fine,
Yep.
and that's great. And my wife and I go out for Valentine's Day, do dinner, all that kind of great stuff. And I don't mind. I'm kind of romantic at heart. But what's clever about this is, rather than saying, let's jump on the Valentine's Day bandwagon,
Yep.
they've done the exact opposite. Let's actually stand out by being different to that, and taking the whole, we've all had a bad Valentine's experience.
Yep.
The old Singles Day as a Singles like to rebrand Valentine's Day. This is kind of that anti-Valentine's. I think it's a really clever way of getting some PR, and a really clever stunt too. If you've got a venomous snake in the zoo, hey, use it for Valentine's Day. It's going to get you some love.
Because, it's a crowded week. Like, if you have an inbox as someone in the media, like, Valentine's Day is just really plugging you up this week. So it definitely catches your attention by doing the anti-Valentine's Day thing, that's for sure.
Totally. Being single and being scorned around this, you can totally see why somebody would want to go venomous snake, absolutely, 100%. But
A lot of people watching here who are saying, to your point, Brooke, I'm going to do it definitely.
I really like Shivani's point about taking the moral high ground. I think some people out there are on good terms with exes, and so it might be a light-hearted bit of fun.
Yeah.
And just make a big gag out of
You
it.
could be in it together.
Maybe.
Yeah.
So,
I'm gonna nominate
you
you.
said that like someone who's going to do that and go, but I thought it was a joke. And the ex like, you.
I'm going to steer clear, but I think
Snake, it's not a car.
navigating that one, it's tricky, right?
You want to have very, very good terms at that point.
Well done. That'll be in the podcast tomorrow. If you'd like to hear again what Shivani said earlier, thank you so much, Shivani.
Pause,
and
replay,
Scott
pause,
Phillips,
replay.
thank you so much, guys.